Hello and welcome to Cannon County High School Algebra 2. This is another in our series of videos designed to help those of you who are trying to do some makeup work for third quarter. One of the IXLs that you've been asked to do is L13, so this one we're going to talk about how do I do L13. Okay, Mr. Lyon, you can take the mask off when this is all over, but not just yet. You go over there. Let's talk about L13, solving radical equations. There are 3 steps to solving radical equations, and here they are. All right, step 1 is to isolate the radical. That means get the radical all by itself on one side of the equal sign. Step 2 is to remove the radical. And you'll do that by either squaring both sides or cubing both sides or whatever it takes to make that happen. And then step 3 is to just solve whatever equation is left. So let's try one. The first one, the square root of x is equal to 1/8. All right, let's take a look. Isolate the radical. Is the radical all by itself on one side of the equal sign? Well, in this case, it is, yeah. So now we're going to go to step 2, remove the radical. Well, the way you undo a square root is to square both sides. So if I square this side and square this side, if I square a square root, I just get left with x. So I get x equals. And 1/8 to the second power, well, 1 to the second power is 1. 8 to the second power is 64. And there it is. The answer is 1/64. Let's try another one. Okay. 7 equals -5 plus the square root of c. Step 1, isolate the radical. This is the radical. It's not all by itself on one side of the equal sign. This -5 is messing everything up because it's over on the right side of the equal sign along with the radical. So we are going to isolate the radical by getting rid of that -5. The way you're going to do that is to add 5 to both sides. When you add 5 to this side, it just disappears, and you're left with the square root of c. When you add 5 to this side, 7 plus 5 is 12. Okay? So step 1 is done. Now we're going to remove the radical by squaring both sides. When you square this side, you just get c, and when you square this side, 12 squared is 144. And now we would solve, but we really don't have to solve because we already have the variable all by itself. So you're done. All right, they get a little harder on each one. Let's try another one. Let's see, step 1, isolate the radical. What's keeping the radical from being all by itself on one side of the equal sign this time? Well, this 10 is keeping the square root of x from being all by itself. So we're going to divide both sides by 10. When you divide this side by 10, the 10s just cancel out. When you divide this side by 10, you get 1. Now we're not done, we still have to square both sides. So if you square both sides, the square root of x squared is x. 1 squared is still 1. And that's it. There's the answer. X is equal to 1. Okay. Let's try another one. Isolate the radical. Well, this one already is isolated. There's nothing else on the left side of the equal sign, except what's under the radical. So we're already done with step 1. Step 2, remove the radical. All right, when we square both sides, squaring a square root just removes the radical. Squaring 5 gives us 25. Step 3, solve. Well, this is just like any other equation now that we would solve. We would subtract 11 in order to get z all by itself. So 25 minus 11 is 14. Okay? All right, do they get any tougher? Well, let's see. We've got just a couple more to go here. Isolate the radical. We have 2 things keeping this radical from being all by itself. We have the -7 and the 5. You undo the order of operations in reverse order. So you undo a subtracting 7 before you undo a multiplying by 5. So we're going to undo subtracting 7 by adding 7 to both sides. When you add 7 to the left side, it just disappears. When you add 7 to the right side, you get 20. Now you can get rid of that 5 by dividing by 5 on both sides. When you divide this side by 5, the 5's cancel out. When you divide this side by 5, you get 4. We now finally have the radical isolated. So now we can square both sides, and you get x equals 16. When you square this side, you get x. When you square 4, you get 16. Okay? All right, they're getting a little tougher here. All right, this one, similar to the previous one, we've got two things that are keeping the radical from being all by itself on one side of the equal sign. You undo the order of operations in reverse order, so we're going to undo subtracting 20 before we undo multiplying by 2. So to undo subtracting 20, we would add 20 to both sides. When you add 20 to this side, this just goes away. When you add 20 to this side, negative 8 plus 20 is positive 12. Now we can divide by 2, which would cause these 2's to cancel out, and you just get the square root of 9 plus w is equal to 12 divided by 2 is 6. And now you can see we're getting close, because now we've got the radical isolated. All we have to do is square both sides to get rid of the radical. When you square 6, you get 36, because 6 times 6 is 36. And then finally, when you subtract 9 from both sides, you get 27. So that means that w is equal to 27, because 36 minus 9 is 27. All right, last problem. Here we go. Let's see. Well, the radical only extends past this 13s, so that means this 6 is keeping the radical from being all by itself. So let's subtract 6 from both sides. That will make it disappear from this side. And when I subtract 6 from 15, I get 9. The radical is now isolated, so I should square both sides. Squaring this side gives me 81. Squaring this side simply removes the radical. And step 3 again is to solve. So we want to get s by itself now, so we're going to add 10 to both sides. That's going to give us 91. And 91 divided by 3. Aha, 91 divided by 3. Do you know what that is? All right, let's do this old school. 91 divided by 3. Not by 3, that's 13. Aha, I almost made a mistake there. Thanks for catching that. Whoever in the back of the room raised your hand, thank you very much. That was a 13. So 91 divided by 13. Yeah, I wrote it as a 3 here. So let's see, well, let's still do this old school. Let's see, 13, how many times is 13 going to 91? I don't know, 6, 7 times? Let's try 7. 7 times 3 is 1, put the 2 up there, 7 times 1 plus 2, yeah, there we go, 91. So that means s equals 7. Whew, thanks for catching my mistake there. The answer was 7. I hope this helps you to do L13. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.